Sweet. Okay. So thanks everyone for coming tonight. Manfred will be talking to us about the AV1 codec that's just recently been deployed by Netflix on select smart TVs and game consoles. I was reading a news article about that today. So Manfred is a senior solutions architect at Bitmovin. He's been enabling developers to achieve excellent results on the OTT streaming platform, and he's been at it for 15 years, having tech experience acting as a developer, cloud architect, software manager. And just like what Garrett said, if you have any questions, feel free to just drop them into the chat or raise your hand. And yeah, Manfred, take it away.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for the introduction. I will just start by sharing my screen, and I would ask you if you can see it.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for joining this meetup today. It's my first meetup as well. So as Chris mentioned, I'm Manfred von Runkel. I'm speaking directly here from Brazil. And of course, before we start, I just would like to ask you, if here there are, let's say, video engineers, if there are software developers, any C-level, and of course, this meetup, the way that could be handled is very informal. Like if you have any questions, you can ask at any time. Just raise your hand there. Chris give your voice to you to talk, to ask. But before start, it's really important for me to understand. We have video engineers here, software engineers, product managers, and then I give you the word.
I mean, I can speak for both Chris Warrington and I guess the Warrington brothers. We're at Cinemedia working on the codec group, so we're working on video encoders. So we're looking at it, I guess, from a technical standpoint. I guess it's interesting for us.
That's great to hear. That was Steve, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
that was Steve.
Okay, Abdul, Benam, Jim.
Well, I can go next. I'm working for this company called Evolution. We are provider of the live casino, and I'm leading the video R&D team within the video team. I'm a software engineer and video engineer, if you can call it software video architect, something like that.
Great to hear. Thank you, Benam. Okay, so I understand then we have a technical group here. So moving forward then, I will be talking today about AV1. And next slide. So that's the agenda for today. I will be talking about what's AV1, the origin of it, specifications, AV1 in 2022, AV1 and devices, Bitmovin and AV1, AV1 results and benefits. And again, if you have any questions at any time, please let me know. Okay, quick introduction, which I already did. So I'm Manfred, and Chris mentioned, I'm Senior Solutions Architect at Bitmovin. If you have any questions or if you want to connect after this call, please send me a mail, or you can just type my name on LinkedIn that you can't find it already. Moving forward, and of course, Bitmovin. Let me just load that slides. Bitmovin was the company that supported me for having this presentation today and gave me the opportunity to talk about AV1 as well. I don't know if you already heard before about the company Bitmovin, but it was founded by Chris and Stefan. They're based in Austria, and that was about in 2013. There are a lot of research on our company that have the past, it's still happening at university and so on. And Bitmovin is one of the world, let's say, leading video technology. We have 3 different products. We have the encoder, the player, and analytics. And for our call today, it's more related to the encoding product itself. We have worked with the Impact Group as well, Define the Dash, and so on. So this is just a quick overall, let's say, overview of the Bitmovin company. But again, 3 products: encoding, player, and analytics. So what's AV1? I understand that most of you have heard it before. Perhaps you have implemented it, you have used. But even like before telling what's AV1, there are some, questions, or let's say confirmations that, let's say, will drive this presentation today, this meetup. So first one, codecs, H264, AVC, H265, HVC, VP8, VP9. We have another one, AV1. Okay, we don't need more codecs, we need fewer codecs on the video domain. So by having more codecs, that gives more, complexity, you have to manage more codecs. So this is one of the phrases that I heard during some AV1 presentation that caught my attention. And AV1 is not ready yet for delivery to the main audience. So these are the main three, let's say, phrases that I heard, and I would like to talk with you, and that will drive the presentation today. So talking about AV1, it's important to talk a little bit about the origin of it, why it was created, developed. So as you know, so video accounts for 80% of internet traffic. That's 1 million of digital media products, services, applications, it's a lot of stuff. So it's a huge amount of traffic. And of course, the only way that we can, decrease or try to, let's say, it's not the best word to it, but to control this traffic is by using, let's say, codecs on the video domain. So, and the goal of it, it's easy, it's compressed data, and the devices speak in the same language. So it doesn't give any, let's say, outcome if you have a codec that's not, it's playable on device. So if the bit rate is too high, so that's the goal. Let's say, generally speaking, of the codec itself, there are more, let's say, ways to explain it, but this is really a summary of it. And the video standards are a way to achieve this, this interoperability, to play on multiple devices and to perform the compressions. The MPEG group, it's a group that defined and still defines a lot of standards, as you know, AVC, HVC, and so on. And these are codecs there. It has like royalty terms and licensing. So these are the things that the manufacturers, the manufacturers of devices should take care while supporting a new codec, or a codec that was developed by this group. And there are other codecs which are, let's say, you have to pay attention to royalty and terms and licensing. I won't enter into details of how that works, but one thing that, let's say, drives the invention of the AV1 codec is to have an open source implementation of it compared to other codecs. So here is a timeline. As you can see, around here, the VP10 was being developed by Google, Cisco was developing Tor, and Mozilla was creating Dala as well. So these companies, they all together, they invested efforts, and they created the Alliance for Open Media, which is a group that, let's say, they promise to collaborate and release an open source video codec named AV1. And this is what you are talking today. So by 2015, that started, we are on 2022. So let's see what happened. Let's see which are the improvements on that, and let's discuss about AV1. It's a little bit of origin story here, but it's just to give you an understanding of how that started. Okay, about the AV1 specification itself, about technical details, and my idea here is that for you all to won't get tired of my voice, because the specification of it, of how it works, it will take about 1 hour, 2 hours. I invited my friend that you can see there. It's Christian Feldman, he's PhD. He's a codec engineer at Bitmovin, and he performed a really great talk explaining partitioning, transformation, every specs, every detail of the AV1 encoding itself. And I really recommend for you to take a look. The links here I can send to you later on, but he is the person that I invited, and then you can take a look later at this presentation. For our meetup today, the main idea about the AV1 specification itself is that AV1, like, it needed and still needs more resources to encode and decode based on behind the scenes algorithms that Christian Feldman explains. We understand that the true value is not just by decreasing the bit rates, but the cost benefit of it. So by bringing efficiencies greater than the actual computational cost. And why I'm telling you that at the end of this, let's say, this part, it's because AV1 needs more resources, it needs more computational calculations and so on. But at the end, you have a lower bit rate. You have, let's say, higher subjective quality. You have, let's say, if you see the scores, VMAF and PCNR and so on, you should have higher scores compared to other encodings. But there's a cost, more computational resources, more calculations and so on, and that you'll be speaking about there during the presentation. So far, based on latest informations, there is one computational curve, so I'm moving my hand here, that it's like HAVC and AV1, it's almost the same time needed for encoding. There's still some field to be working on, and that's where Bitmovin is working. We have a cloud encoding. I will tell you a bit more about in the next slides. So we have a cloud encoding. We can, let's say, take parts of the video and process in parallel, and that makes things faster. And I'm talking not about other codecs that we have already supported, but yes, the same behavior that you explained earlier on to have multiple chunks being processed at the same time, we have that with AV1. So AV1 in 2022. Let me see here. Going back to the origin and bringing to today, ecosystem wasn't ready. It was a great codec, but not practicable. So that was some of, let's say, confirmations and assumptions, let's say, in the last years. But when we see right now, we see that AV1 is able to deliver, let's say, three of the main technologies that we have on the streaming technologies: VOD, live, and real-time communication. So AV1 is able to deliver these three main, let's say, features, to support these mainframe technologies. And we see already that in production, we have softwares with AV1 based on delivering RTC, live, and VOD. When we talk about, let's say, media technologies, AV1 supports SD, HD, 4K, 8K, and HDR. So we have this vast gamma of technologies that are being supported. It's not just partial, it's not just 4K, 8K, it can go even to SD. And of course, we have companies such as Netflix, YouTube, and Facebook that they are using really in production AV1. If we take one example, like such as Facebook, if let's say I record, using my mobile phone here, let's say a movie of my, my daily base here with my daughter, and I upload to Facebook, so that would be encoded by using AV1. But at the same time, we'll have premium content at Netflix and YouTube that they are encoded using AV1 as well. So that means from simple content until premium content, AV1 is being used by Netflix, YouTube, and Facebook, and other companies. And to bring the sense of the usage of AV1, every year Bitmovin, let's say, creates or asks our customers and the market and so on some questions around the streaming market. So it's called Video Developer Report. Here's the link as well. I can send it to you later on. There are various aspects of the streaming, media, etc. technologies, let's say numbers and so on. And one of the questions is how are you using AV1 compared to your current workflow, what you are delivering today. And we see here by 2018 started with 6%, and right now in production we have customers, we have let's say the companies, they are delivering on average 15% of the content using AV1. It most than doubled from 2018 until 2022. If I go to the next one here, So which are the video codecs that you are using in production? So AV1 is here. Oh, sorry, this report was done 2021. That was by last year. AV1 15%. Here are the other codecs, as we know, AVC, HEVC, MPEG, VP8, VP9. So AV1 is here, it's increasing, it's 15%. And the idea for 2022, the main goal is that let's say the overall 15%, it should go to 22%. So companies, they are planning to use AV1. So we are going out from last year from 15 to 22%. So by the next year, on the next video developer report, we will measure again, we will ask the market, we will ask our customers of how AV1 is being used. And it's part of my talk today to show you how feasible it is to use AV1. Okay, so one of the cool things about looking at AV1 is there is a ton of information on the internet. And I mean, from a scientific area until the news. Like if you just type AV1 and go to Google News and or other website, you see a new device is being delivered with AV1 support. You see a trend that companies are using AV1, but I understand that we are a technical audience here, right? So it's really important to understand, are these manufacturers really implementing AV1? Which is the next topic I will talk right now, AV1 and devices. So I did a quick research, which I would like to share with you. So if I go to the mobile part, if I access here, the Android supported media formats, I see already AV1, starting from Android 10, as I understand. So most of the software decoder right now is software-based, but new phones, new mobile phones, they are being delivered with hardware decoder. So that shows that the market, the manufacturers, they're really investing on AV1. So being technical and looking at this documentation, I can confirm that AV1 is supported by Android starting from version 10. If we're talking about smart TVs, right? So if I go to the website of the Samsung and look at Tizen documentation, I would see that AV1 is being supported starting from 2021 models. So that means that Samsung is working, it's supporting AV1 as well. If I go to LG, and this one I have the link here. Let me see if it will load or not. Otherwise, I go back to presentation. So if we see here, the AV1 codec is being supported on 4K Ultra HD models, 8K Ultra HD models. We have AV1 here, and that starts by WebOS TV5. So if you go to 6, you would see AV1 there as well. So another manufacturer, another brand working with AV1. Fire Stick 4K Max as well. We can see here the AV1 support. So this is the Amazon Fire TV Stick again. So support with AV1. Even these sticks, they are having support of it. And if we look at the browsers itself, there are several browsers that are starting or already supports AV1. We have Edge, Firefox, Chrome, Opera, Android browser, Opera mobile, Chrome for Android, and other browsers. And you could ask me like, where is Apple here? Like, I don't see Safari, I don't see iOS, right? So this is one of the questions that are driving most of the AV1, let's say, support. The support, device support area. And as Apple is part of the AOM, the Alliance for Open Media, so the market expects that Apple will support at some point the AV1 codec. It's not confirmed, but based on this confirmation that it's, sorry, and based on this information that Apple is part of the AOM, so it's expected that at some point that will be supported. Before I jump into Bitmovin and AV1, someone has any questions? Someone, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I can move forward.
Manfred, do you know if there's like profile or level limitations on the consumer TVs or software decoders for AV1? I know previously, like you'd have to, for mobile and handheld, you had to have baseline 264. So I was wondering, are there similar kind of restrictions for AV1?
Yes. I was looking at Chrome. Let me see if I can find it here. But for example, Chrome supports its baselines 1 or 0. But let me see here. Chrome AV1 support. This is a good question. Thanks for asking. And yes, there is, let me give an example. So Chrome supports main profile 0. So this is something that we have to look more. There are several profiles for AV1. I'll just access Wikipedia, but I think that's fine. So here there are several different, let me go down here, levels, profiles, and so on. So we'll have to check that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving forward, thank you. So Bitmovin and AV1. So as we see, there are more hardware decoders available, and of course software decoders as well in consumer devices. The encoding speed, as I mentioned to you, is almost on par with HEVC, and AV1 is a lot more viable for production deployment. If you see, let's say, older implementations of AV1 compared to right now, so it's 13 times faster. And I think it's even faster right now. Our engineering team works hard on the AV1 implementation or encoder. So it based, let's say, on the next months, years, we'll have even a more faster encoder. So encoding AV1 with Bitmovin. I mentioned to you before, oh, sorry, that was my mouse here. I mentioned to you before that Bitmovin works with chunks. So what that means, we take, let's say, an MQV file, we take an MP4 file, etc. that's AV1 based, and we separate this mezzanine file into several chunks. That means that the encoding process can run in parallel, and that brings speed. And again, it's using AV1. At the end, after the overall encoding, we have just your asset ready for production. This part of parallelizing here, it's what really brings speed into the encoding process itself. And by having the content in our storage CDN, is just a playback. It's just adding the manifest to the player and start playing, which I'll show to you in a few minutes. Talking a little bit more about how the Bitmovin encoder works. So we have our SDK in, let's call it a client API on several different programming languages, PHP, C#, Python, Node, Go, Ruby, Java, that you can integrate already on your current workflow or your CMS to start running the encodings. The encode itself runs on the cloud. So this is a client API. I could run the client API in my machine, but encode itself here, I think this is important to let you know, it will run on the cloud. So it will retrieve the file from your S3 bucket, from your Azure Blob storage, etc., FTP, STFTP, and so on. You perform the encoding and you store there in your storage again, S3, Azure Blob, etc. But to instruct the encoder that's based on the cloud to run, all the details of the encoding, resolutions, bitrate, etc., they are all based on this encoding script, which I call personally encoding script. And here, as you can see, we have the documentation of AV1 to show you that's ready to be used. Real quick, it's loading. These are the endpoints. So I would just configure my encoding script and pass whatever is needed for the AV1 codec with height, bit rate, and etc. So it's real just quick. We have several, this demonstration here was real quick, but we have several materials on the internet I can send you later on of how to start using Bitmovin and then applying the AV1 configuration. But if you would like to start it, just take in mind that an encoding script is needed. You pass some parameters there that you get your storage, encoding details and where it should be stored, defining HLS, dash manifest, and so on. And that's it. It runs on the cloud, it finishes. So this was just a real overview of it. Okay, moving forward. This is one of the encodings that was performed using Bitmovin. So this is, let's say, our dashboard where we can follow up some of the encodings. That was the content Aspen 1080p. As you can see, it goes from 110 kilobits per second until 3.3. And here are the resolutions that were generated. So this is will be discussed on the next slides. But before moving forward and perform, let's say, discussion around the VQ analysis, I would like to share with you that Bitmovin is able already to deliver, let's say, an AV1 content ready for production. And what that means? It means that we have muxing with FMP4, WebM, segmented progressive, internally fragmented, DRM. So this is really important. I want to deliver AV1 with DRM applied to it. So I want to be sure that my content is encrypted and so on. Widevine and Plurality is our technology supported. It's possible to use 4K. And there are two technologies that are more related to, let's say, to Bitmovin, which is called per title, which will decide which is the best bit rate and resolution based on the complexity of the asset. So that could be used as well using AV1. And we have the 3-pass technology that even decreases, let's say, the bit rate and improve quality. As you know, so we have several segments. Let's take the FMP4 muxing. You have like several segments, let's say 4-second length. And then for each segment, if you go to the next one, you lose a little bit, let's say, of the subjective quality from one segment to another. 3-pass, it tries to minimize this impact of, let's say, having multiple segments. We have a ton of material on the internet as well from per title 3-pass, but these are two technologies that helps while using AV1 as well. And here to show you live, let me just open here. Oh, sorry, let me go back to the slide. Here, I just want to show you one dash manifest with FMP4 and Widevine and just a quick playback of the Big Buck Bunny content using AV1. So let's start here and just open my local environment on Chrome. So you should see it's AV1, it's playing, that's the Bitmovin player. I just attached the manifest to it. It was really, there's no additional, let's say, logic because you're using Bitmovin player. Because you're using AV1, it's just by passing the dash manifest and the Widevine URL server, license server. And that's it. And I can see already it playing. So let me just go back. And I'm using Chrome. Chrome supports it. If I open the manifest, let me just close it here. Let me download it. And I will bring here to you just a bit of information of the manifest itself. So we see here the codec AV1, here more about the profiles that's used and so on. If I recall, this is the 0 baseline and so on. There's the height, there's the content, the DRM applied to the manifest itself. So this is like, if you see that, you see like a production manifest that's been delivered to the main audience, to the customers, subscribers, and so on. So this is real. So it's really, happening. You can encode it using Bitmovin. You can deliver a manifest and start using it. So just then go back to the slides. It's just to give you, let's say, a practical, right, example of using AV1.
Manfred,
Yes?
we have a couple of questions in the chat. One of them is about live AV1 encoding. Do you know when that is going to be feasible?
Okay, let me see. Is there any plan to live AV1 encoding to your services? Benham, you check that. You check with the product team. And the better use difference between the AWS software decoding and hard and AVC devices. Okay, I will check that as well. I don't have the study with me, but I think we have some material that I can share later on, Benham.
Thanks.
Chris, just if you could then take these questions later on and send to me, I appreciate. If for any reason I close here everything and I lost these questions, just to make sure that you have it.
Oh, no problem. I'll do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. And of course, so I showed to you, let's say, some practical examples of how to use it. I showed to you a dash manifest. And here we perform, just close here. Okay. We perform one, let's say, VQ analysis with, of course, we perform several VQ analysis by using AV1. I don't know if you already saw a similar graph here, but it's using VMAF as the main, let's say, score, which is the objective full reference video quality metric, which is here on the left side. And here at the bottom, you have the bit rate that's being used. If I recall exactly, from a perceptual quality, something between 60, 90, or 70, 90 is something that you can define as a good quality of the content that you are watching. And here below, you could start seeing some artifacts and so on. But okay, going forward with this graph here, we have AV1, HEVC, VP9, and AVC. The blue line is the AV1. The HEVC is the orange one, VP9 is the green one, and AVC is the red one. As you can see, the blue one, AV1, it uses less bitrate compared to the other ones, and the quality, the VMAF score, it's higher compared to the other ones. If we take, let's say, 80 as a VMAF score compared to the other codecs that would have a similar score, AV1 is able to deliver, let's say, an 80 VMAF score by having 2.4 megabits per second. VP9 starts with 3.7, which is VP9 is the green one, so it's about here, 3.7, HEVC 3.9, and AVC 4.3. So that means that AV1 can deliver this content on this quality and resolution between 720 and 1080, having less, almost 39% less bitrate compared to the next codec. So this is really amazing. This is really good from let's say, from a quality perspective, and having, let's say, a decrease on the bitrate usage. The next one that I show to you is similar on the convex hull curve and so on. This is another content where we perform the same VQ analysis. And right now, so it's the same idea. Blue is AV1, HEVC is the orange one, VP9 is the green one, AVC is the red one. But if we take a look here at the VMAF score of 90, AV1 could deliver that at, at 2 megabits, HEVC 3.5, VP9 4.1, and AVC 4.9. Of course, if we take the latest resolution, it would be about 3.1. But we can see already that if, for example, per title would be used that would decide the best resolution and bitrate, probably it would be at this point here, delivering 2 megabits for, let's say, a 1080 with a VMAF score of 90. So we are seeing really the benefits of using the AV1. Less bitrate, more quality. And we can use, let's say, an open score to double check that. So it's really good to see these graphs and why AV1 is being applied. And of course, we can even go further and perform more analysis, such as comparing comparing VP9 to AV1. So AV1 would have, let's say, an highest rendition of VMAF 92.7. The lowest rendition would start at 22.3 as the VMAF score. The total size of all renditions would be even smaller. So there are several items here that we can see that AV1 performs better. So we can see, let's say, for example, minimum bitrate to start at 720, 1.4. You know, we see really good results while comparing other codecs with AV1. And the final benefits of it, if we take all the numbers and we try to enumerate the benefits of using AV1, is minus 30% storage and CDN traffic costs compared to HEVC and VP9. Of course, this is a raw number. It will be important to perform, let's say, a TCO to verify how much is charged for storage, for CDN, but the overall goal is to decrease in 30%. It's not just numbers, but increase the perceived quality, as you saw here on this graph. So higher VMAF scores for, let's say, lowest resolutions, reduce startup time of the content. You don't have, let's say, a higher bit rate, lesser rebuffering. So you have, again, a lower bit rate. That means less rebuffering. And one codec for SD, HD, 4K, and HDR. So you don't have to work with multiple codecs as soon there are more devices, let's say, supporting AV1, which is the goal for the next year from the manufacturers. The idea is just to have only one codec. And while Bitmovin working with customer and prospects talking about AV1, there are some sentiments about that. For example, AV1 playback, especially with DRM, is mostly untested. Our solution from Bitmovin is stream testing lab for AV1 on a variety of devices. And we saw that even on documentations like from manufacturers directly, AV1 is supported. AV1 is more efficient than anything in use today. So how do they define efficient bitrate ladder? By using per title, which will decide the bitrate ladder automatically in using AV1. AV1 is low resource intensive to encode. So we have Bitmovin innovations cutting down, let's say, processing time by using 3PAS by 40% and other technologies that we have internally. And try before buy for AV1 encoder is difficult. So using Bitmovin, you can just go to the Bitmovin website, create a try account, and starting using AV1 for free during the trial. So you have ways to generate the manifest as I showed it to you with DRM and so on, and starting testing. With that, I thank you for participating in the Meetup today. Before I finish the presentation and go perhaps to additional questions, we launched the Bitmovin community, Bitmovin developer community, which I invite you to join, where you have news, resources, knowledge, events, support, jobs, discussion, and so on. So I really encourage you to join this community, starting asking questions, seeing what we have here, some news. So I really ask for your presence there if you would like to. So this is the link I will send to you later on as well here on the presentation.
Hey, Manfred. Chris has a question related to the compute cost. You can see that in the chat, and we kind of discussed this beforehand, so thought you might be able to.
Let me just, Chris, to achieve the 30% bitrate savings in code versus HEVC VP9, can you give an idea of the relative compute costs? Chris, you mean by the time needed to perform the encoding, how much, compared to other encoders?
Cycles, I guess, yeah.
Okay.
Cycles, yeah.
Okay, Chris, right now it's about, let's say, but this is a raw number, of course, depends of the, the mezzanine file itself.
Yeah.
There are a lot of stuff involved, but I would say it's less than 2x.
Okay, yeah.
Like if you have a content that's about, let's say, 2 minutes, and it needs 2 minutes to be encoding using HEVC or VP9, that would be about 3 minutes and a half, almost 4 minutes using AV1.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Manfred. I guess Benham has another question. Have you ever benchmarked AV1 encoder against libaom SVT AV1 in terms of the quality and speed?
Benham, I think I would then forward this question to engineering. I don't have the answer to this one, but happy to verify.
Thank you.
Thank you, Benham.
I would actually be interested in hearing that too. I don't know if the answer will be forwarded to the rest of the people at the meetup. I'd be. That'd be cool
I
to
can
hear
post
that
the
as well.
questions and answers on the meetup page if that's okay with you, Manfred, or you can I can send it out after the fact.
An email.
Chris, send it. Yes, by mail, Chris, send it to me, and then happy to move to.
Yeah, and Chris, I already have an email together of all the questions. I can CC you on that as well. And actually, is everybody's emails on the meetup invite?
I'd have to double check how that works through meetup.com.
Yeah, Chris, will you send me your email as Steve as well as you? And if anybody else would like the answers to those questions as well, if you just want to send them in the chat right now, I have a list of all the questions that I'm going to send to Manfred, and we're going to follow up on them within the coming days, and we'll send out the answers to the group wide. Whoever wants to shoot me their email address, if that works for everybody.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Any other questions from the group?
Well, actually, I don't know if you can call it a question or not, but I just was wondering that, do you have any speculation when will AV1 overtake the H.264 in terms of the number of usage? I mean, deployments out there. Right now, we are seeing that AV1 been out there and the talk of it for past years, but actually not much is happening on the playback side and the deployment side. So it was just based on the stats that you are seeing, and we saw that in your latest, basically overview of the streaming industry near the holidays. For the first time, we've seen that the number of the AV1 deployments is on the rise. But do you have any speculation, any idea that will it happen this year, next year, or when?
Biran, a good question, and thanks for asking. Before you can answer that, of course, we have to take in account as well, like the regions where AV1 can be deployed. Let's say, if we're talking, let's say, US market or Canadian market. So Canadian market, I'm supposing right now, but there, let's say, people usually are having, let's say, newer devices. They're updating, let's say, almost yearly or every 2 years. But then if we go to other, let's say, countries or regions, let's say on my region here, like I know people with 2016 smart TV model, smart TV, and so on. So AV1 wouldn't work in this case. So first you have to verify that. But if you look specifically at markets where devices are being upgraded more and more, so the expectation is, I don't have the year, I don't have the number, but you can see that it started by 6% in 2018. And right now it's 15% AV1 content being coded, and the expectation is 22 by the next year, sorry, by this year, right? So this is expectation. It seems not possible, let's say, to define, let's say, 100% if that will happen, let's say, on the upcoming year or let's say in 2 years. But we see really a big effort on every part of the ecosystem, manufacturers, encoders, devices, and so on. But so far, so we don't have this number. Let's follow up on the next report of Bitmovin, and then we have a better overview of how AV1 is being deployed and used.
Sure, thank you. And
I know that's an open answer. It's an open question, but let's get all the metrics. Let's work together. But really, the sense and the feeling, and there is a lot of investment on AV1.
That is true, since this is kind of not so formal way of thinking. Sorry, I'm just adding my observation, because we've been doing experimenting with the AV1 for past year. And one very big thing, especially in our industry, which is basically just live, we don't do any bot, is the infrastructure to deliver anything other than the H.264. Right now, almost everyone uses the RTMP as de facto kind of protocol to deliver live. But when you want to do any other codec, the RTMP is out of question. So when you try to do something like the SRT or the RIST or any UDP based stuff for the low latency, especially, we see that the infrastructure just doesn't support. I mean, no CDN is providing the UDP delivery, although there are talks of it. And yeah, that is also a big pain area for making the AV1 something usable for special people like us who are doing just live, not VOD.
It's okay. It's more live than VOD. Okay. Now I can understand, Benon. I understand about the RTMP inputs, sending the signals and so on. But I'll check that as well, Benon, if there are any plans, something, but how's the market working with that? But you give us like a good overall of how this is. And this technology, right? These are specifications, RTMP and so on, codecs. But it's a good one. It's a good one. But we see that perhaps by, let's say, perhaps starting by VOD and so on, and perhaps a near future then having the feasibility to use AV1 for live. But it's on the spec, let's say, to be supported. Of course, the input can change, can be another one, but let's follow the next steps. And thanks for the additional insights, Benno.
My pleasure.
Any other questions? Okay, well, if that's all, then I want to thank you, Manfred, for coming out tonight, and Garrett as well for supporting Manfred, and that was a great talk. Yeah, otherwise, there are other video dev meetups. There's supposed to be one starting, I think, at 9 o'clock for the San Francisco Videotech, but I don't think I think their speaker fell through. Next month, I think someone from Instagram is supposed to be talking at the San Francisco Videotech. Otherwise, there's the Video Dev Slack. If you just type that into Google, there's a whole bunch of people who know a whole lot of video and all over the place. Otherwise, Demuxed was I think it was November last year. There's a bunch of talks that have just been posted onto YouTube recently, so go check that out as well. You can search, I think, Demux 2021, and there's a Demux channel with talks on there. So if that's everything, then I just want to, wish everyone a good night, and I'll see you next month.
Yeah, thanks for the talk. Yeah.
Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for the talk.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for organizing.
Bye.
Bye.